I will not be fooled. I will not be fooled. This was a great performance versus Udinese. Do not get me wrong. This was probably our best game in 2025. And excuse me for my voice. This was from me yelling at the San Diego FC game. But if you guys want to check out what I'm doing over there, check us out on SDFC Bros. We're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, and also on YouTube. So go check us out. But forgive me of my voice. But I will not be fooled for this game. Yeah, sure, we beat Udinese. Definitely our best game of the year for sure. Composed, confident, and we saw probably our best performance out of Rafael Leao and most definitely Teo Hernandez. This was a game where we saw vintage Teo and vintage Leao in this game. And I really want to tip my hat to Sergio Conceição because this was the first time we saw a Milan that was so comfortable on the ball in offensive transition, defensive transition, in all aspects of the pitch. We saw Reinders playing at a top level this game, and we saw every single player looked comfortable on the ball and in every area of the pitch. This 3-4-3 is what we have to go through from this point forward, right? Because we play Atalanta next week in the San Siro, and then after that, 3 days later, we play Inter in the second leg of Coppa Italia. So still a lot of work to be done with this team, but I think there's at least a reference point that we can look at to be like, okay, what more can we do to make this squad better in terms of style of play, right? We saw Reinders playing in a way more advanced role where he was a lot closer to goal and he had a goal to show for it as well. So that was very nice. And also, I think there was a lot of, kind of question marks with this whole defense and everything like that. But this three back made every single player look a lot more comfortable on the ball, especially Pavlovic, where we saw Teo Hernandez play that left mid role, but it was really good because it's like once you do get past the Teo Hernandez, then you have Pavlovic that was there. And it's way better to have Pavlovic at that left center back spot than in a back four, right? Being in that center back pairing. So I really liked Pavlovic in this game just solely off of the fact where when you do get past that defensive line, Pavlovic was always there. So I really like Pavlovic. So I want to tip my hat to him as well. But I really want to focus on Teo Hernandez this game. This specific match, we really saw Teo play the best football we've seen this whole season, right? I don't care about the Supercoppa versus Inter. I'm talking in a Serie A game away, right, where Udinese always give us trouble, guys. Let's not forget, Udinese are always kind of like our bogey team where we don't really know what to expect in these types of games versus Udinese. So honestly, I was expecting probably a draw in this game, probably, or maybe even a loss, to be honest, right? Our away form really isn't that great. And I mean, just the state of the club in general has not been the best in these last couple of games. So to see a performance like that from Teo Hernandez, especially with a lot of big games coming up upon the horizon, same thing with Leao as well, but we'll get into him later. But specifically with Teo Hernandez, I really liked how he was playing in this game in a more advanced role. He didn't really have a lot of, duties defensively to go back as well. And on top of that, his counterpart on that right-hand side, Alex Jimenez, was putting in an absolute shift. And I really, really liked him in this right mid spot, much better than Yunus Musa on that right-hand side. I think he was just way more comfortable on that side, right? Instead of being an out-and-out right back, I think right mid was just the perfect position for him because same thing with Pavlovic on that left-hand side. We saw Tomori, which was really interesting kind of to see him back into this team. But I can't say that I didn't like it, right? I really enjoyed seeing Tomori back into the team because, he's just one of those players where it's like he definitely still gives like that Scudetto kind of era, right, of Milan, right? Because truthfully, he is one of four players in this starting 11 that actually won the Scudetto, right? We're talking Mike, Teo, Leao, and Tomori, right? So it was really nice to see Tomori back into this lineup. And I think Tomori as well did benefit from having that Alex Jimenez player on that right-hand side, playing that right mid role. I think the only caveat I had, and it's kind of starting to concern me a little bit, is Pulisic. Pulisic, I feel like, hasn't really been playing at that top level that we've seen him play at. But, I mean, it's the tail end of the season. He really was one of those players in the beginning of the season and much throughout this beginning of the year who we would rely on to get us out of these tough situations. So to be completely honest, I'm giving Pulisic the benefit of the doubt in these last couple of games, especially because we're at the tail end of the season. So Pulisic, for me, really, I think he can get a break right now. Maybe, you can talk about maybe subbing him in, but I think for now, I think Pulisic is just fine where he's at, in my opinion. I think one conversation that's been kind of circulating around Milan Twitter or Milan X, of what do you want to call it, is this whole kind of striker situation, right? Because we saw Tammy Abraham score against Inter in the derby. Santiago Jimenez is kind of one of the new kids on the block, one of the new names that we just brought, who is maybe the future of the striker position. But then you got Luka Jovic in two back-to-back games. He scored 2 goals. So it's like, who is the striker for Milan to kind of go forward, right? Because for me right now, I'm not gonna lie, I like Luka Jovic so far, which I did not think that that was gonna come out of my mouth at all. But to be completely honest, I really like what Luka Jovic offers, because it's like, it's not like he's a Tammy type player, or he's not like a Santiago Jimenez who is kind of unpredictable with that left foot, but it's like just Jovic just reminds me of kind of like a Cutrone or like a Higuain type striker, whereas it's like he's good on the ball and like he's really clinical in front of goal. I mean, we've seen it in these last couple games where he's able to put the ball in the back of the net. And for me, it's like he's riding some good form right now. Just keep playing him, to be completely honest. And I mean, I like how him and Pavlovic kind of have like, that Serbian connection and everything like that. And I think the rest of the squad likes Jovic as well. So for me, if we can really just capture that lightning in a bottle with Luka Jovic to the point where he can come back to that form where he was at Eintracht Frankfurt, right? Where he was at the top of his game, then just let Jovic cook. But I think with the whole remainder of the squad, I really enjoyed this game to the point where it was actually appealing to watch, right? Milan were actually playing really good football. And I think that Teo Hernandez goal, I want to say, where it was like that nice move. It was like Tammy Abraham like flicked on a ball and then Leao passed it as well. And then Teo's threw on goal. I think it was that one. That is the football that we love to see. And that's the creative aspect that this Milan team can 1000% get ahead of. So I really like how Milan has been playing this game, and I really hope that we can kind of continue this form and continue this type of play, right, with a 3-4-3. And I'm most definitely sure Conceição is going to probably play the exact same lineup, because at this point, why fix it if it's not broken? And honestly, I think Conceição kind of needs a break at this moment, to the point where it's like, if we get a solid result, right? A 4-0. When was the last time we got a 4-0 away, right? Clean sheet, solid performance. And honestly, if I were to just give this just a match rating, I'd say probably like an 8 or a 9, to be completely honest. It was so comfortable, right? And I don't think Udinese really had a threatening shot on goal, right? I think Mike Maignan did a really good job to kind of contain this game to the point where it was still, to the point where we can still add maybe a fifth or a sixth opportunity. But I really hope that Mike Maignan is okay for this game, because that, clash with Jimenez was really scary, right? When seeing it live and then seeing it in slow motion looked even worse. But I really hope Mike is okay. And from reports that were saying he does seem okay, I think he was in the hospital for like less than a day or something like that, or less than a night or something like that. But regardless of the fact is, Mike Maignan as well had a very good game in this one. And I really hope that he can maybe get, back into the lineup, because it's like, if we have to go into these next couple games, right, versus Atalanta and against Inter with Sportiello, I can't sit here and say that I would be confident going into these games with Sportiello between the sticks. So that's just me. But I think overall, right, when you just look at just this Milan performance, this is something that we can most definitely be proud of. And I think this was kind of just like a breath of fresh air to kind of see this Milan team go through this game to the point where we really didn't have to risk much in the defensive end, and we really weren't wasteful in front of goal, from what my memory is kind of telling me. But for the most part, I think what I really enjoyed in this game was our transition from like midfield to attack, right? Reinders was playing at a very top level. Fofana was playing very well. And I really liked the two outside midfielders, Teo Hernandez and Alex Jimenez. I think that going forward is what's going to get the best out of both of them going forward in these next couple matches. And also, I kind of skipped over Rafael Leao, but this was the Rafael Leao that we really needed to see, especially in this kind of tail end of the season where, these matches are going to come thick and fast, and every single point matters to maybe scrape by and get a European spot. But to be completely honest, guys, I do not think that we're going to get a European spot. I think we're going to skip out on Europe next season. I think it is a complete rebuild of the squad, but we're talking about Rafael Leao here. And for me, Rafael Leao is a pivotal point in this team where it's like if we can get the best out of him, then this is how we're going to win games. And I mean, with this formation, I feel like it catered 1000% for Rafael Leao to the point where it's like he didn't really need to go back and defend, because I feel like with kind of Teo Hernandez playing in like that left midfield role and then Pavlovic being right back there as well, I think with also the introduction of Fofana kind of playing a little bit deeper than we saw, I think it really covers a lot of this kind of defensive kind of nonsense that this media was going on about how Leao needed to come back and he needed to track back and play defense. Absolute rubbish. I think when you think about Rafael Leao, I don't give a damn if he doesn't defend a single minute in this game. He should not be defending, right? He does not need to be back in our box, right, to compensate for our defensive errors. Not at all. He needs to stay up and he needs to be right where he needs to be. And in this game, right, I think it was the tail goal where I kind of just look at it and like that is just Rafael Leao to a T. And that goal that he scored, absolute peach. So Rafael Leao, well done. But in our next couple games, big matches, right? Against Atalanta, this is going to be huge. They are out of the title race, to be honest, so I don't think they're going to really play up to the occasion. But for me, it's like Atalanta is always a tough opponent. And guys, regardless of the fact is, right, this was a great win, right? This was a great performance from the guys. But to be completely honest, guys, Atalanta is a different beast than Udinese. Let's just call a spade here. So to be honest, I don't think that we're going to win this next game versus Atalanta. Again, like the Fiorentina game that I said we'll draw, and thankfully we drew. And I think in this game versus Atalanta, I think we're going to draw as well. I could see definitely a 1-1 for this game, because I just think Atalanta are just too good for us at the moment. And I mean, with Milan just being so inconsistent, right? You can have a great 4-0 win, but then when you go play Atalanta, right, we are in the San Siro, but regardless of the fact is, I just cannot put all my chips on Milan to the point where I know that we're going to win. So I'm saying a draw for this one. I'm going to play it safe. I'm being a little optimistic with that one, but I'm going to say a 1-1. But I think the game that I really want to focus on here is the Coppa Italia game versus Inter. And at this moment in the season, right, where Inter are kind of, hitting that form to the point where Lautaro Martinez is back on the score sheet every now and then. In the Champions League, Inter just beat Bayern as well. So that's, something, a high that they're really going to be on. And guys, I don't think that we're going to go through to the Coppa Italia final. I just think Inter are just way too good, and they're like a Hydra, right? That dragon Greek mythology creature. They got like 3 heads. Every time you cut one off, 3 more grow back. So it's like, I just think that is Inter at the moment, to the point where they're a train that they are not stopping, and they have this motivation to win the treble and everything like that. Regardless of whether you think they are going to do it, they have that motivation to keep on going and keep persisting and getting wins, right? No matter what the occasion is, right? And I mean, to be honest, they have the home leg for this game, so they're gonna have, loads of other Inter fans in the stadium. But guys, I do not think that we're going to go through to the Coppa Italia final. And even if we were to go through to the final, I still think that we would lose to Bologna. So I don't want, this win versus Udinese to kind of cloud our judgment of where this team is actually at. Because, guys, this team is so inconsistent. We cannot look at this win, even though it was a phenomenal win where we played, a full 90 minutes damn near perfectly. We have to look at the reality of this situation and where Milan is at. And the table is indicative of what Milan has been playing like this whole season, guys. 9th place. This isn't, just like a fluke season or anything like that. We put ourselves in this position because of how we've been playing all season. So even though we have a nice 4-0 win that, we can kind of, look at, doesn't mean shit in the long term. So for me, I'm looking at this Inter game and I'm just like, look, if we can push them all the way to a penalty shootout or, get a late goal, or something like that to the point where we can get to the final, fair enough. But for me, I do think that we are going to lose that game versus Inter, and I'm just not confident with this Milan team at all. Unless, we kind of see something crazy happen versus Atalanta, then maybe that might persuade me to kind of change how I think right now. But I'm just so pessimistic about Milan right now to the point where I just want this season to end and I want to see who this sporting director is going to be and who's going to come in to kind of make these different changes. And it depends how good Conceição ends the season. If we somehow get into a European spot, right? Whether that's like Europa League or something like that. And even if I think we get Conference League, I don't think that Conceição is going to continue. But maybe, just maybe, if we get Europa League, then you're talking about Conceição maybe staying. But it depends. If he gets his 3-4-3 down to something where it's like clockwork to the point where these players just know exactly where to be in the right spaces at the right time, then maybe we could talk about extending Conceição. But I think Conceição's time at Milan is done. And I think you're asking a lot of, questions about, for one, who the sporting director is. I know there's been links with Tade, with Parataci, but I think Parataci, I think that boat has sailed for a while now. So I think we're kind of looking at Tade right now. And I think I've seen some reports saying that with Tade coming in, I think he might bring in a Maurizio Sarri. So I wouldn't be completely upset with that change. But for me, it's just, I feel like Sarri is just such like a, it's like he's like a used towel, right? To the point where it's like he's just so damp and so wet that towel won't even do anything, right? We saw what he did with Lazio, which was great, but he couldn't really take them to that next level. With Juventus, obviously he had like that Ronaldo team and everything like that, but guys, you're always going to win the Scudetto with Ronaldo and everything like that. So for me, I just feel like Sarri just isn't the right coach for Milan at the moment. I would much rather have like a De Zerbi, someone who's young, someone who's passionate about the club, and someone who's going to get the best out of these players. And for me, I feel like De Zerbi is a coach that you can really build with, and he develops players very well, right? With those Sassuolo teams, we saw Politano, we saw Locatelli, we saw so many other players develop through that Sassuolo team. And Sassuolo always gave us a hard time, guys. So let's not remember that. And obviously with Brighton, he did very well to develop players like Moises Caicedo, McAllister, and so many other players in that Brighton team. So for me, I feel like AC Milan and De Zerbi are just a perfect fit. And De Zerbi was, a Milan fan and everything like that. So I think that's just kind of an added incentive. For me, I would love De Zerbi to go in. But guys, let me know what you think in the comment section below. And what do you think our chances are in getting to the Coppa Italia final? And what do you think our chances are of actually, for real, getting a European spot? Because for me, I don't think it's going to happen. But I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Ciao ragazzi.